Welcome everyone to Foundations of Forgiveness with Logosynthesis. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation. My name is Lori Chortkoff-Hops, licensed psychologist, and my contact information is here, drlorihops.com. That is my website, and you'll be getting more information from me as we go along. So welcome to Logosynthesis Day. As I mentioned, I'm a licensed psychologist in California and the United States of America, where it's morning here. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for those who are live and those who are coming from the recording later on. Welcome. I am a Logosynthesis certified practitioner and instructor, and I also am associated with the Association for Comprehensive Energy Psychology, where I am past president and also have a certification as a diplomat in comprehensive energy psychology. I have training as a Reiki master, and I love arts, performing arts, writing, dance, and creating visual arts. And I also have a podcast that you might want to know about on Spotify and YouTube called Healing Tips from the Heart, Intuition with Helpers, Healers, and Guides. And I have some people I've interviewed from Logosynthesis community already on that site. So we'll talk about that towards the end. But why are we here today? Today, our agenda in a very short amount of time is to give you an overview of forgiveness with Logosynthesis. So we're going to talk about what is forgiveness, common steps used to help with forgiveness. I'm going to introduce a very basic and limited idea about logosynthesis. It's a complex model, but I'm going to isolate two notions of matrix and essence, which I'll go into. And then I'm going to combine forgiveness with matrix and essence into a tale of forgiveness that I wrote called The Rage of Revenge and the Remorse of Regret, which I'll talk about in a little more detail. We'll talk after the tale about what more you can do to learn, next steps you might want to take, and then there'll be time for question and answer. So that is a brief agenda. I do want to offer thanks to those who have created Logosynthesis, along with Dr. Lammers, of course, the origin of Logosynthesis, all of those who have been here for so many years and created this Logosynthesis Day, our third annual, and for all of you being here today. And so if we can just take a moment for gratitude, for being here together as community, all of the wonderful things that are going to happen down the line for ourselves, for our communities, for our families, and offer gratitude for where we are on the land, wherever you are around the world now. Thank you. So what is forgiveness? Forgiveness is when you deliberately decide for your own well-being to release feelings of resentment or vengeance towards a person or group who has harmed you. So I'll say that again. If there's a person or group who has harmed you, including your own self towards you, you can decide to forgive. This is a deliberate decision that you have the free will to make for your own wellness, and you are actively releasing your feelings of resentment or vengeance, wanting to get even. In doing so, you're creating positive thoughts, feelings, or motives directed towards the offending person or persons. And this can take place regardless of when the offense happened. It could be in the current time, it could be last week, it could be anticipating an offense that might happen in the future, and can even go back into distant time with family or geography or culture. There are offenses that take place over time on vast scales, so there's no time restriction on when forgiveness can be granted. And the people don't have to be alive. Also, these other people who have harmed you or yourself do not actually have to deserve your forgiveness. You can grant forgiveness regardless. There's been studies that have shown that forgiveness offers greater compassion, empathy, and peace of mind for yourself, for people. And so there are positive health benefits for doing this. On the flip side, there are also negative health benefits for holding on to resentment and vengeance. This is not a good state for our body to live in, although it is an understandable state to be in when there has been harm done towards you. So it's understandable, but it's not good for you to hold on to it. So that's a motivation to let go. So many people have done work to find what are the steps of forgiveness. So the steps of forgiveness can be done in any order aside from the last step. The last step is usually reserved for the actual forgiveness itself. These other steps, though, kind of blend together and they can be done in any order. So the first one is to actually name the offense and express your reactions. And this is a vital step because often what happens when we have been harmed is we go into shock and we kind of shut down on our greater awareness of ourselves. This is a natural and healthy response to trauma, but it doesn't help give us perspective or even to be able to use language sometimes to understand what has happened. So it's important to have the safe space and time to be able to name what's happened and to express your reactions. If you try to rush and bypass this step, you won't get as much understanding about what's happened or be able to dig as deep when it comes to the time to forgive. So this is naming the reality of the harm done and its impact. And this could be named for you solely or with others. It could be public or private or both. The next step is a little trickier, and this is to reflect on the reasons for the offense, even with unreasonable actions. Yes, actions happen that are unreasonable, but separate from the actions and the events, we have a responsibility to look at our own story, even as we have been oppressed or offended, because oftentimes buried in that pain are hidden gems. They're hidden there for us to be able to discover about ourselves and for our growth. And you can only find this if you reflect on the reasons. So even if you are completely innocent, there are still lessons to be learned about these events that have happened, whether they are tied to your personal past or the collective or something else that's going on. Maybe they are information to help prepare you even for future events. Another step in forgiveness is to build or rebuild your resources. So oftentimes when we are injured, hurt, traumatized, we forget vital parts of ourselves that we had before, like that we have strength or wisdom, or that we can know truth or find connection and support. And so it's important to reconnect to those resources that we have inside and around us. So it's a matter of building and sometimes rebuilding our resources after we have been offended in some way or injured. And then the fourth step is to freely choose to forgive. This is an optional step, but if you go there, it becomes a new way of being in your life, despite the wrongdoing of yourself or others. So these are the 4 steps of forgiveness that we'll be returning to after we share the tale. Okay, next slide. So now we quickly switch gears to an aspect of logosynthesis model. If you're new to logosynthesis, you'll be hearing these terms throughout. And it's the notion of matrix, which is everyday reality, and essence, which is source or creativity or God or whatever it is you want to say to that spiritual or esoteric aspect of being alive. So life is an intersection between these two dynamics, between the everyday reality of the here and now, which Dr. Lammers calls the matrix, similar to the film, The Matrix. And that is what you see and hear and feel. For example, that you're looking at the screen, that you're in your physical body in a space right now, that you're listening. That's all part of the matrix, even having Logosynthesis Day. And then essence is eternity or source or whatever it is you call that. It could be life force. And we need both for optimal functioning. If we have too much matrix in our life and not enough essence, then it closes off divine possibility, and we become almost like automatons or robot-like. We can fulfill the needs of the matrix, which have its own desires for us, and we get programmed in kind of mindlessly moving through our life. If you have too much essence and you're too much lost in source or eternity or God space or even love, it doesn't ground you into the present state as a human being on the earth. It's almost like you have your head in the clouds, and it can be very intoxicating. It can be very frightening too, because it's not all positive, but you can get lost there, and then the practicalities of life are not as present for you. So it's nice to do a dance between matrix and essence. And I will be describing how matrix and essence can help open up blocks. So logosynthesis and forgiveness. As I said, logosynthesis works with essence and matrix to resolve stuck energy. For example, if you have a situation and you're not sure if you want to forgive at all, and you're really in a quandary about it, you're confused, you can use the methods with logosynthesis using matrix and essence to help you work through those layers and decide whether forgiveness is right for you at this time. If you decide you do want to forgive, but somehow you become stuck in completing one or more of the steps I mentioned earlier, logosynthesis again can come in and help you by looking at what's going on in your everyday life, and also how can essence come and offer a broader perspective or other techniques and tools to help lift you out of that stuckness. So in the short time we have today, I've created a tale, a fairy tale, to demonstrate some of these notions that we're talking about, so you can get a sense of how this works. In this story, we're going to meet Kate. And Kate manages the everyday experience of betrayal that we've all had in our lives in the matrix. And she also gets help from an eternal nature of essence to help her create forgiveness. And we'll be seeing together how this works. So this tale of forgiveness is called The Rage of Revenge and the Remorse of Regret. And I will be reading it to you in a few minutes. In this tale, I'd like you to pay attention to the steps for forgiveness and see if you notice them. We'll go over them after the tale, so you'll see them. And just a note on this notion of remorse of regret. Regret is when something's gone wrong and you don't want to be punished for it. You would try to avoid punishment. Remorse is this deep sorrow, more of a soul searching about what's happened, where you want to vow to behave differently in the future. So it's not just about getting caught or being in trouble. It's about actually having a character or behavioral change. And in this story, we talk about both sides, the rage that happens when you feel vengeful against something, and also that deep longing to do things differently and change your ways when you understand that you have something to regret. During this fairy tale that I'll be reading, you may notice some personal triggers that come up for you. So you might want to jot them down. This is not the time or place to go into those triggers, but you might be doing some personal work later. This is an opportunity for you to look at some of the areas of forgiveness that you may have. And if you already know how to apply the logosynthesis basic procedure or other aspects of healing, you may want to do that later as well. This is an opportunity for you to look at some of your forgiveness issues, as I have done in creating this presentation, and will, I'm sure, continue to do. So here we go. We're going to focus on the steps for forgiveness, the matrix and essence, any personal triggers you have, and how you might apply the logosynthesis basic procedure or others. And so now we begin with the rage of revenge and the remorse of regret, a tale of the matrix and essence by Lori Hobbs. Once upon a time, there lived a person who knew of love and sorrow and hate. Let's call her Kate. Kate had many people and times in her life which made her feel good and connected to all things. Kate also knew pain, as we all do when we live enough days. Kate knew to trust her eyes and her inner knowing. It helped her understand things about life that are confusing. One day, Kate saw something she could hardly believe was true. It seemed like a bad, horrid nightmare, beyond the worst. She took it in, but tried not to. She went into shock, sat, and shivered. She tried to make it not be true, but it was indeed true, and she became angry. How could this thing happen? Where were the strong supports and ties and binds holding up the sky, keeping the ocean waves running and the birds flying while darkness descended? She collapsed into herself. Then she was on fire. There are ones to blame. Find them and put them in forever darkness. Let pain rain on them. She became the rage of revenge. Then she stopped. She had become them, the hated ones. This was not good for her or for the world. She saw that desperation leads to acts of evil. So she fell still. She would not be a monster. Kate implored the heavens and spirits and beings of light to answer her anguish. They arrived. They soothed her pain, and all fell silent. Then Kate saw a new view. It was clear and simple and true. The ones she hated, that she wanted destroyed, they were also bewildered, lied to, betrayed. They twisted in anguish twice over, once for their acts of horror, and again for the shock of finding out they had been lied to. What they did was unforgivable, and they would pay for their own hand of responsibility. Kate was relieved. She found a secret only pain can open: the remorse of regret. It completely replaced her rage of revenge. Kate was empty. She then opened her heart to the land of forgiving, forgiving herself for her blind rage, forgiving the misguided wrongdoers, forgiving ignorance and darkness. She felt calm, wiped her tears, and saw that her heart was put back in place, a bit bruised but healing. As the beings of love left her, she heard these parting words: "We are back to make peace with you. You are here to take our requests to heart. We mean you no harm now or before the before. It is as it always has been, revenge, never accounts for lasting regret long past the time when the rage fades into the moonlight lit with spilled blood running wild and thick in between screams of how it has been unfair, laid to rest no more until the heart empties its bitterness, filled into the dark spaces of loss so deep it weeps, seeps with longing to connect to pain no longer heard, whispered cries of lullabies. So take a moment. You might want to jot down some notes, drink some water. And we're going to talk a little bit about Kate's forgiveness path. So one of the steps is to name the offense and express reactions. And Kate did this when she told of her nightmare, which we don't know what it was, but she told of her reactions, her shock and her rage. Next is to reflect on reasons, even with unreasonable actions. And here she realized that desperation leads to acts of evil, and that she did not want to participate in this. She would not be a monster. In rebuilding her resources, Kate implores the heavens, asking for help. And this is when Essence and the Matrix meet. The Matrix for the pain she's been through and her reactions to them, and then inviting this Essence into her life, the heavens, to help her. She also chooses freely to forgive. She discovers the remorse of regret, and she forgives herself and others with peace. So if you'd like to learn more, you can contact me for a blog that I wrote on forgiveness as an act of well-being. You can just email forgivenessblog to drlorihops@gmail.com. And you can also freely partake in the podcasts that I have recorded. I have 13 to date, 2 each month come out. So far, I have already interviewed Willem Lammers and Kathy Caswell, and others from the Logosynthesis community will be interviewed down the line. You can find all of the interviews at hopshealingtips.com, and they are free on Spotify and YouTube. You can also go to the Logosynthesis International site for more information about logosynthesis, and I will be teaching a logosynthesis and self-coaching class, Transform Everyday Stress, Burdens, and Challenges for Greater Freedom with simple, clear, and easy steps for daily practice. This is 3 meetings of 2 hours each, and you can email me for more information. We'll be meeting January 19th, 26th, and February 9th from 8 to 10 in the morning Pacific time. And this is a self-coaching workshop, not psychotherapy. And so now here's my contact information. Leave it up just for a moment. Feel sometimes regret of what we've done upon reflection, but we don't always feel remorseful, and that there can be an extra burden that comes up with that. And we're not aware of it usually when we're enraged, any of it. We're just feeling justified for being angry. But there is a burden that sometimes comes with that rage. I'm not saying we shouldn't be rageful, but our actions can sometimes lead to consequences that are unintended or unexpected. And we want a do-over. We don't always get it, but you can emotionally get a do-over through forgiveness. Perspective. We're at the end of our time. Thank you so much for this brief time together. I appreciate and applaud all of you for being here, and please enjoy the rest of the day.